and dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this Friday evening. We'll get right into the news here. Couple things I'm going to cover here is the Fed and deflation. Before I get into that, there was an article I seen from Jeffrey Tucker, tucker.liberty.me, and I wanted to read this here. And it's 15 great lessons on commerce and entrepreneurship. The web is packed with some of the greatest educational material on entrepreneurship and enterprise. Material that did exist a decade ago and is now within the mouse click reach of vast swaths of humanity. Are we taking advantage of it? I set out to collect the top 15 videos on entrepreneurship. A totally subjective list, of course, but there are those ones we have found most compelling. Watching all of these provides a great overview of the contribution that enterprise makes to quality of life. They illustrate, too, the dangers of government rules, regulations, taxes, trade restrictions. They kill creativity and prosperity, making life harder for entrepreneurs and capitalists to serve society through innovation and expansion. I sought to pick videos that show the real stuff at work, not just academic lectures, but the real heartbeat of human action in an enterprising world. Please share this set with people who need to understand. The first one is the Lego story, and you can watch all these. I'm not going to play all these clips, but first one's the Lego story. This is an amazing short movie about the history of one company covering the dream, the setbacks, the innovations, the development, or the achievement, and so much more. It is also very beautifully made. Every kid in the world ought to see this wonderful video. It's just a little 17-minute clip. Kane's Arcade. This is a heartwarming story of a child with the idea, but it is more than that. It is a look at the dream of commercial achievement and what it takes to see it realized. We see in Kane the traits that made a Rockefeller or Carnegie or any of the greats. There is a certain fanaticism about what they do, a deep love and belief in the idea and the desire to serve others. And that's one thing I don't agree with the Rockefellers and the Carnegies. They were pretty set on going at each other's necks. There's some stories behind a lot of that too. Number 3, Matt Ridley. The idea have sex. Matt Ridley may not have set out to illustrate the power of economic thinking, but that is what he does here. He shows how to develop complex economy is all about sharing, cooperation, service, and learning. He recharacterizes the commercial spirit as community-minded and deeply connected to public service. It is a brilliant presentation, one of the finest writers and thinkers working today. Joanna Blakely, Lesson from Fashion's Free Culture. This lecture sweeps away a profound confusion about commerce, that it is due to the containment and privatization of ideas. On the contrary, a true enterprise economy is about the spreading and sharing of ideas, just as entrepreneurship itself relies on innovating from existing knowledge. Great creators are great students too. The video uses fashion to show how it works. And I'm just going to name the rest of these off. Hans Rosling and the Magic Washing Machine. Rory Sutherland, Perspective is Everything. Richard Branson, Advice for Entrepreneurs. Soda Pop, John Neese, proprietor of Galco Soda. Anthony Bourdain in Haiti. Alan Edmonds Factory Tour. Hyundai Motor Manufacturing Alabama Plant Tour. Smartphone or iSmartphone. The Call of the Entrepreneur. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates Together. Which that's just scary, and I don't even think they like each other. I can't remember though. Whole Foods CEO John Mackey and the Moral Case for Capitalism. And that would be it. Go check out that article. It does give you some look into how things are run nowadays too. And there are chances for people to move up, and you can do it honestly, but it's definitely getting harder, and the monopolies are being created. And many can say they've already been created in many markets. Talking about the economy, though, AMTV, Christopher Green put out Deflation, Why the Fed is Really Fighting. And I'm going to share this one with you here.
I think the transition is smooth. The real question will be the next transition, because there's a whole lot of people that would be in competition, and they have an interesting way of choosing the next leader. But this one it will be in keeping with the Saudi policies towards us and the region. Look, the Saudis are more frightened, and I am more concerned about the rise of ISIS and even more the incursions of Iran into different countries. Right now, Iran has significant influence in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen. Now they're sponsoring this Houthis who have basically taken over the governance of the country, and so they're very worried. And I am worried too. And frankly, they perceive a lack of strong American leadership.
What should we be doing at this point that you think we're not?
We haven't got time on the program, but let me begin by saying that we should arm the Free Syrian Army. We should have more American boots on the ground in Iraq and Syria in the form of forward air controllers, intelligence capabilities, special forces, others. We should be understanding that this is one fight, not two separate ones between Iraq and Syria, where we seem to have two different strategies. And finally, we shouldn't be training young men in Saudi Arabia as we are and sending them into Syria to be barrel bombed by Bashar Assad. There's a delusion that somehow we're going to have an agreement with Iran, that's nuclear agreement, then we're all going to be working together. The Iranians are on the march in the Middle East.
Check out our sponsor, ProPureUSA.com. That's ProPureUSA.com, the leading innovator in water filtration systems. Get all of your water filters at ProPureUSA.com. Click the link below right now. Good morning, good morning, good morning, adieu. Welcome to AMTV, Alternative Media Television. I'm your host, Christopher Green. And you know, these are really interesting times. Some people would argue that this is end times. It's the end of the road for America, for the Federal Reserve, really for that entire system, for the global economy. You know, the trade of the petrodollar, this longstanding dominance of the West post-World War II has all been kind of flipped upside down. It's a inverted pyramid. Basically, the heavy part is up here now, and it's putting pressure on that top, tippy top of bailouts and super leveraged hedge fund managers borrowing at 0% from the Fed's open window. All those people at the top not getting their fair share, being raped by the Federal Reserve right now with 0% interest rates, hurting savers, hurting the good, honest, hard workers here in the United States that are, by the way, and you're paying for the bailouts, paying with their children's future and their children's future. All of this is inverted, and it's weighing down on the elite. It's exactly why this was the main topic of discussion in Davos, Switzerland, where you could buy a $45 hot dog just earlier in the week. Hedge fund managers talking about they're so afraid of this wealth gap, this income inequality, the fact that just a couple of dudes own over half the world's wealth. They're so fearful of it that they're actually buying retreats, private retreats, where they can fly their Lear jets in case of an emergency, uprising of sorts, either here in America or Europe or anywhere else for that matter, and retreat to places like New Zealand at their private estate. They're very worried about this, just like they talked about 5 years ago, how social media, which you're tuning into right now, which, by the way, reaches over 250,000 people a day, millions and millions and millions of viewers a month, just how they warned about that roughly 5 or 6 years ago, they're now very worried about the wealth gap, this income inequality, and the eventuality of a revolution, of a lot of very, very angry people. Again, everybody squeezed up here at the top, basically all the slaves putting pressure down on the 0.001% that receive trillion-dollar bailouts, that receive the benefits of quantitative easing, inflated asset prices. Again, it's not helping anybody up here. It's only helping the same scumbags that caused the financial crises in the first place, that caused the economic Armageddon that made up 2008, 2009, that caused a wave of bankruptcies, of foreclosures, of short sales, etc. Again, everybody up here getting screwed. Kids coming out of college with, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt, can't find a job, working minimum wage at McDonald's, wondering why they took on, $200,000 worth of student loans. It's exactly why Obama, commander-in-chief, is trying to institutionalize everything. He's trying to socialize, I would argue, fascize everything. He's going to give free education now. You remember the idea behind everybody should own a house? That was a big push by Washington. Everybody should own a house. Let's just give them away for free. You don't have to put money down. We'll state your assets. We'll state your income. You don't even need a job. All you need is a heartbeat, and we'll give you a loan. How well did that turn out? Well, it ended in economic Armageddon. Now Obama says he wants everybody to go to college for free. Yeah, that's right. It's going to be free. Of course, it's not free. We're all going to pay for it. It's going to create these anomalies in our market. It's going to cost billions and billions of dollars, just like the storm they screwed up on yesterday. Remember how that was going to wave through New York? It was going to be the storm of the century, another Hurricane Sandy. Well, that didn't happen. What it did is shut down about, I think, 5,000 to 6,000 flights, cost our economy here in the States roughly $1 billion. $1 billion boo-boo. Because a couple of meteorologists just flatly got it wrong. Just like the Federal Reserve is flatly getting it wrong now, saying, they're going to contain inflation expectations, that all of this will work out. All this worthless money printing into infinity, this trillions of dollars worth of new debt, over $4.5 trillion at the Federal Reserve balance sheet, over $18 trillion plus and growing at an extremely rapid exponential rate, can never be paid back. This is just pure facts, mathematics, 18 plus trillion here in the United States. All of this, they say, is going to work out when it's not. It's exactly why the elite in Davos are talking about wealth inequality. They're talking about the wealth redistribution, this gap. I've talked about this personally for years. I mean, the whole 2008-09 crisis was engineered to steal money, to steal wealth. Again, the largest transfer of wealth in history just suddenly floated to the tippy top of the 0.001%'s pockets. Isn't that interesting? Wasn't it the kids and grandkids of all the hardworking parents, Americans, wasn't that supposed to transfer down to them? Wasn't that how things were supposed to work? But it didn't happen that way. No, what we did was engineer crises. We engineered bailouts. We were sold the lie that the world was going to come to an end. Remember George W. Bush? The world was going to come to an end. That's why we had to bail out all the banks, bail out these billionaires. They needed more money. Not you. We'll take your house into foreclosure and short sale. We'll bankrupt your business while we pad the pockets of Richard Branson. I'm just using him as a random example. The guy doesn't need any more money. He already owns an island. He already has a fleet of jets, etc. These bankers don't need any more bailouts. If anything, we should be pickpocketing their pockets. I want to make something clear here for my audience, if you don't already know. Those of you that tuned in for years know. I'm a capitalist, baby. I'm a capitalist. I'm an American. I'm pro-freedom. I'm pro the fundamentals and principles that have made this country great over the past few hundred years before we screwed it up. Okay? I'm not a socialist. I don't think we should redistribute all the wealth to everybody. It should just be some lollipop gumdrop world. But it's exactly what Obama is doing, not for the people, though. Not for the masses. He's doing it for the elite. They're transferring all the wealth to the tippy top before revolution. And there's a reason for it. There will inevitably be more civil unrest. There will be an uprising, not just what we've already seen in Europe or the engineered Arab Spring, courtesy of the West, but also here in the United States of America. A lot of this is driven by technology, this technological age, this what arguably is the second industrial revolution, the development of artificial intelligence. Computers, for every new job the technology creates, it destroys 10, maybe more. It's why wages are being pressed and pressured lower. It's why kids are coming out of college with hundreds of thousands of dollars of engineered debt, thanks to the banks and thanks to the crony debt leverage Ponzi scheme system, can't find work. They're slinging hamburgers over at McDonald's so people can get cancer a little quicker. There's a reason for all this. It's exactly why the Federal Reserve is really fighting deflation. The devil is in the D word. That's what the Fed is really fighting. A lot of this has to do with the technological age. Again, this technological innovation that's destroying jobs. We have too much supply, it appears, of everything. We have too much supply of oil. For example, let's say Apple got a new order for 1 billion more iPads or iPhones in China. You think they could do it? Sure. Of course, they reported a net profit last quarter, the greatest we've seen in really the history of the world. I mean, that's kind of a perfect example of where this economy is, where it's headed, how the masses are being left behind by the tech, by the super geekazoids. This is what's filtering to that top 0.001%. It's why people at Davos, millionaires and billionaires, are worried. Everybody's rushing to get to the top before the inevitable inverted pyramid crumbles to the ground. And there's revolt, and there's uprising, and there's coups, and there's revolution, and there's continued depression here in the United States and around the world, exactly what we're experiencing now. Again, this deflationary environment is a nightmare for the Fed. It's actually good for the people, but it's a nightmare for the Fed because it inverts the upside-down Ponzi scheme. It puts more pressure on the debt. What's riding on the books of the Federal Reserve, the $18 trillion debt, trying to service those interest payments. They all of a sudden can't do it. They're furiously trying to print money at hyper speed digitally, furiously trying to do it to weaken the currency, but the dollar keeps rising. We have all this deflationary pressure. We have too much supply. Look at oil. We've got too much of it. You know, it's funny. You've got companies like Elon Musk's Tesla that comes to market with these, you know, this new wave of technology in cars. All of a sudden, oil crashes. It's like, do you really need a Tesla? I mean, you can fill up your truck, an F-250 right now for like $35. We have too much supply of everything. In fact, the only constraint, I would argue, in regards to supply, is there's too much in every area. And all of this is developing in hyper speed. The masses in the world is being left behind, and just a few people are benefiting. We see this massive dynamic, this stratification, this wealth gap from rich to poor. We have never seen this in history. So what do the elites do? If they know the uprising is inevitable, if they know the revolt is coming, if these billionaires that own half the wealth in the world on the planet are worried about this, they're buying retreats, private retreats in New Zealand to escape the ensuing chaos. What's coming to America, what's already, I would argue, in Europe, and coming to the world, what do? Do they allow the coup to take place? Do they allow the Ferguson riots on steroids compounded to overtake the White House? Do they allow the Arab Spring to take place here in the United States of America? Do they allow the Second American Revolution or maybe a civil war or a secessionist movement from states like Texas? No. They would much prefer to send you to war. They would much prefer to go to war, let you fight and die overseas. As John McCain spoke today, I saw him on CNBC. He just got back from a plane ride to Saudi Arabia. You know, the same guy has been pictured with, you know, ISIS terrorists and then says we're at war with ISIS. He said something very interesting today, something very specific. He said, you know what? We're not at war with multiple countries. We're not at war with just Iraq or Syria. We're at war with ISIS. That's the war. He's basically laying the framework and suggesting that who cares that we're engaged in numerous illegal occupations and wars and technological wars via drone strikes? It's just one enemy now. It's ISIS. And it's an explanation and, in his view, a justification for an all-out regional conflict and war in the Middle East today. A regional nuclear event. Absolutely crazy. That's Washington's justification. So make no doubt about it, folks. They're going to send you to war. They're going to urge you, right when this upside-down Ponzi scheme crumbles, when the revolution really begins to take hold, people's blood beginning to boil, as it becomes more readily apparent this year in 2015 and 2016 that we're just living through the greatest of Great Depressions, that's when we'll all be conveniently fighting a common enemy. They're already laying the framework for it now with ISIS, the new boogeyman, the new Al-Qaeda. Of course, they won't be fighting the war. They'll be in New Zealand at their private retreat. Obama will be flying Air Force One during his third term. But he'll ask you, the American people, to go fight Chris Kyle's war, where Chris Kyle left off. You know, an American hero that just guns down hundreds of people by pulling the trigger. You know, I don't know if I'd call that being a hero. You know, isn't it funny how murder's cool in war? It's like, oh yeah, murder's fine, yeah. Kill as many people as you want. The more people you gun down, the better. They'll even make a movie about you, even though it's just a propaganda film to rein in the masses and the promotion of this fight against ISIS and these wars overseas. But
okay, I'm going to stop that there. AMTV on YouTube, Christopher Green. I kind of want to stick on the topic of the Fed. And this is a cycle that we keep getting caught into, but the more we do, the more it becomes a realization for many more people that your wealth is being taken from you. We're going to see that, well, even when you do get a raise or a little bit better paying job, what the Fed has done, what basically our government has allowed to happen, even us as a nation, if you want to call it that, what we have allowed to happen. And that little raise will not keep up with inflation. It will constantly be moving faster than your raises will. And I think you should be able to see that. But I think that there's still people that are blinded, but I don't think it's going to be allowed to progress like they would like it to. Another subject that we'll get into is the dumbing down of the youth and public school and all that. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I think the hurt's going to make more and more people aware. Hopefully they do become aware and don't just keep buying into it. But to continue on the Fed, Ron Paul put out a clip. I'm not going to play the whole thing of this one either. But Ron Paul on the Fed, beware the 2%. And it says here, this includes the Fed's, talks about the Fed's absorb mandate to ensure a 2% inflation rate. The Fed is the primary driver of the welfare state that is destroying the U.S. Ron Paul condemns the 2%ers. And we'll go ahead and cue this up.
Welcome. Thanks for tuning in, all friends of liberty. Over the last 100 years, the Fed has had many mandates and policy changes in its pursuit of becoming the chief central economic planner for the United States. Not only has it pursued this utopian dream of planning the U.S. economy and financing every boondoggle conceivable in the welfare warfare state, it has become the manipulator of the premier world reserve currency. As Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke explained to me, the once profoundly successful world currency, gold, was no longer money. This meant that he believed, and the world has accepted, the fiat dollar as the most important currency of the world, and the U.S. has the privilege and responsibility for managing it. He might even believe, along with his Fed colleagues, both past and present, that the fiat dollar will replace gold for millennia to come. I remain unconvinced. At its inception, the Fed got its marching orders to become the ultimate lender of last resort to banks and business interests. And to do that, it needed an elastic currency. The supporters of the new bank in 1913 were well aware that commodity money did not stretch enough to satisfy the politicians' appetite for welfare and war spending. A printing press and computer, along with the removal of the gold standard, would eventually provide the tools for a worldwide fiat currency. We've been there since 1971, and the results are not good. Many modifications of policy mandates occurred between 1913 and 1971, and the Fed continues today in a desperate effort to prevent the total unwinding and collapse of a monetary system built on sand. A storm is brewing, and when it hits, it will reveal the fragility of the entire world financial system. The Fed and its friends in the financial industry are frantically hoping their next mandate or strategy for managing the system will continue to bail them out of each new crisis. The seeds were sown with the passage of the Federal Reserve Act in December 1913. The lender of last resort would target special beneficiaries with its ability to create unlimited credit. It was granted power to channel credit in a special way. Average citizens struggling with a mortgage or a small business about to go under were not the Fed's concern. Commercial, agricultural, and industrial paper was to be bought when the Fed's friends were in trouble and the economy needed to be propped up. At its inception, the Fed was given no permission to buy speculative financial debt or U.S. Treasury debt. It didn't take long for Congress to amend the Federal Reserve Act to allow the purchase of U.S. debt to finance World War I and subsequently all the many wars to follow. These changes eventually led to trillions of dollars being used in the current crisis to bail out banks and mortgage companies in over their heads with derivative speculations and worthless mortgage-backed securities. It took a while to go from a gold standard in 1913 to the unbelievable paper bailouts that occurred during the crash of 2008 and 2009. In 1979, the dual mandate was proposed by Congress to solve the problem of high inflation and high unemployment, which defied the conventional wisdom of the Phillips curve that supported the idea that inflation could be a trade-off for decreasing unemployment. The stagflation of the 1970s was an eye-opener for all the establishment and government economists. None of them had anticipated the serious financial and banking problems in the 1970s that concluded with very high interest rates. That's when the Congress instructed the Fed to follow a dual mandate to achieve, through monetary manipulation, a policy of stable prices and maximum employment. The goal was to have Congress wave a wand and presto, the problem would be solved without the Fed giving up power to create money out of thin air that allows it to guarantee a bailout for Wall Street's friends and the financial markets when needed. The dual mandate was really a triple mandate. The Fed was also instructed to maintain, quote, moderate long-term interest rates, close quote. Moderate was not defined. I now have personally witnessed nominal interest rates as high as 21% and rates below 1%. Real interest rates today are actually below zero. The dual or the triple mandate has only compounded the problems we face today. Temporary relief was achieved in the 1980s and confidence in the dollar was restored after Volcker raised interest rates up to 21%, but structural problems remained. Nevertheless, the stock market crashed in 1987 and the Fed needed more help. President Reagan's executive order 12631 created the President's Working Group on Financial Markets, also known as the Plunge Protection Team. This executive order gave more power to the Federal Reserve, Treasury, Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and the Security and Exchange Commission to come to the rescue of Wall Street if markets decline got out of hand. Though their friends on Wall Street were bailed out in the 2000 and 2008 panics, this new power obviously did not create a sound economy. Secrecy was the utmost importance to prevent the public from seeing just how this mandate operated and exactly who was benefiting. Since 2008, real economic growth has not returned. From the viewpoint of the central economic planners, wages aren't going up fast enough, which is like saying the currency is not being debased rapidly enough. That's the same explanation they give for prices not rising fast enough as measured by the government-rigged consumer price index. In essence, it seems like they believe that making the cost of living go up for the average people is a solution to the economic crisis. Rather bizarre. The obsession now is to get price inflation up to at least a 2% level per year. The assumption is that if the Fed can get prices to rise, the economy will rebound. This, too, is monetary policy nonsense. If the result of a congressional mandate placed on the Fed for moderate and stable interest rates results in interest rates ranging from 0% to 21%, then believing the Fed can achieve a healthy economy by getting consumer prices to increase by 2% per year is a pie-in-the-sky dream. Money managers can't do it. And if they could, it would achieve nothing except compounding the errors that have been driving monetary policy for 100 years. A mandate for 2% price inflation is not only a goal for the central planners in the United States, but for most central bankers worldwide. It's interesting to note that the idea of a 2% inflation rate was conceived 25 years ago in New Zealand to curtail double-digit price inflation. The claim was made that since conditions improved in New Zealand after they lowered their inflation rate to 2%, that there was something magical about it. And from this, they assumed that anything lower than 2% must be a detriment and the inflation rate must be raised. Of course, the only tool central bankers have to achieve this rate is to print money and hope it flows in the direction of raising the particular prices that the Fed wants to raise. One problem is that although newly created money by central banks does inflate prices, the central planners can't control which prices will increase or when it will happen. Instead of consumer prices rising, the price inflation may go into other areas as determined by millions of individuals making their own choices. Today, we can find very high prices for stocks, bonds, educational costs, medical care, and food, yet the CPI stays under 2%. The CPI, though the Fed currently wants it to be even higher, is misreported on the low side. The Fed's real goal is to make sure there is no opposition to the money printing press that they need to run at full speed to keep the financial markets afloat. This is for the purpose of propping up particular stock prices, debt derivatives, and bonds in order to take care of their friends on Wall Street. This mandate that the Fed follows, unlike others, is of their own creation. No questions are asked by the legislators, who are always in need of monetary inflation to paper over the debt run up by welfare warfare spending. There will be a day when the obsession with the goal of zero interest rates and 2% price inflation will be laughed at by future economic historians. It will be seen as just as silly as John Law's inflationary scheme in the 18th century for perpetual wealth for France by creating the Mississippi bubble, which ended in a disaster. After a mere 2 years, 1719 to 1720, of runaway inflation, Law was forced to leave France in disgrace. The current scenario will not be precisely the same as with this giant bubble, but the consequences will very likely be much greater than that which occurred with the bursting of the Mississippi bubble. The fiat dollar standard is worldwide, and nothing similar to this has ever existed before. The Fed and all the world's central banks now endorse the monetary principles that motivated John Law in his goal of new paradigm for French prosperity. His thesis was simple. First, increase paper money notes in order to increase the money supply in circulation. This, he claimed, would revitalize the finances of the French government and the French economy. His theory was no more complicated than that. This is exactly what the Federal Reserve has been attempting to do for the past 6 years. It has created $4 trillion of new money and used it to buy government treasury bills and $1.7 trillion of worthless home mortgages. Real growth and a high standard of living for a large majority of Americans have not occurred, whereas the Wall Street elite have done quite well. This has resulted in aggravating and persistent class warfare that has been going on for quite some time. The Fed has failed at following its many mandates, whether legislatively directed or spontaneously decided upon by the Fed itself, like the 2% price inflation rate. But in addition, to compound the mischief caused by distorting the much-needed market rate of interest, the Fed is much more involved than just running the printing presses. It regulates and manages the inflation tax. The Fed was the chief architect of the bailouts in 2008. It facilitates the accumulation of government debt, whether it's to finance wars or the welfare transfer programs directed at both rich and poor. The Fed provides a backstop for the speculative derivatives dealings of the banks, considered too big to fail. Together with the FDIC's insurance for bank accounts, these programs generate a huge moral hazard while the Fed obfuscates monetary and economic reality. The Federal Reserve reports that it has over 300 PhDs on the payroll, more in the Federal Reserve's district banks, and many more associated scholars under contract at many universities. The exact cost to get all this wonderful advice is unknown. The Federal Reserve, on its website, assures the American people that these economists represent an exceptional diverse range of interests in specific areas of expertise. Of course, this is with the exception that gold is of no interest to them in their hundreds and thousands of papers written by the Fed. The academic efforts by subsidized learned professors ensures that our college graduates are well indoctrinated in the ways of inflation and economic planning. As a consequence, too, essentially all members of Congress have learned these same lessons. Fed policy is a hodgepodge of monetary mismanagement and economic interference in the marketplace. Sadly, little effort is being made to seriously consider real monetary reform, which is what we need. That will only come after a major currency crisis. I have quite frequently made the point about the error of central banks assuming that they know exactly what interest rates best serves the economy and at what rate price inflation should be. Currently, the obsession with a 2% increase in the CPI per year and a zero rate of interest is rather silly. In spite of all the mandates, flip-flopping on policy, and irrational regulatory exuberance, there is an overwhelming fear that is shared by all central bankers on which they dwell day and night. That is the dreaded possibility of deflation. A major problem is that of defining the terms commonly used. It's hard to explain a policy dealing with deflation when Keynesians claim a falling average price level, something hard to measure, is deflation, when the Austrian free market school describes deflation as a decrease in the money supply. The hysterical...
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. We know much of this. We understand that Austrian economics isn't taught in public schools. Gold's not looked at as currency or not public schools, but these institutions. And gold's not looked at as a currency in these institutions. But when you look at reality, what it takes to buy a product, that gold or that silver will still be worth that much. When product prices are going up, if you took your money that you could have afforded that toy, but you took that cash, put it in gold or silver, and then 10 years down the road when the new version of it's just completely out of this world, you can turn around and take that gold and silver and usually trade it in and be able to purchase that item. Because the dollar bill loses value. There's nothing backing it. And when they're constantly printing more, when they're constantly robbing and taxing us, so we have to pay more taxes and more taxes. They say, we're going to tax the rich when they tax, well, anybody that has anything is considered rich over people that have nothing. No matter why they have nothing, some can be in a, bad situation, which many people feel bad, and there's people out there willing to help. Or you got the people that see the flaw in the system and go, why am I going to bust my butt when I can get paid just as much to do this? Because I don't strive to be anything other than maybe a worker at a outlet store. Not saying there's anything wrong if it pays the bills and keeps you happy, but when they're creating a system that will make it possible for you to go, well, I don't have to work at an outlet store to get that same amount of money. And that same amount of money I can live happily on. Well, it's a game that you're going to play that you're going to end up losing. And we've seen this throughout history when we go down this path. They go, well, it's always because the government was corrupt. Only if the government wouldn't be corrupt, the socialist system would work. We just need a better government. Yeah, keep dreaming. One thing he forgot to mention is one thing that would definitely hurt the Fed is to be audited. And it's not really going to hurt the Fed enough, but what it's going to do is basically turn what they like to call conspiracy theory, the Keynesian economists like to call conspiracy theory or junk economy because they don't like Austrian economics. What it would do is it would expose that, hey, what we've been saying is true, and look at the books. It would turn that, what they like to try and make a conspiracy theory into conspiracy fact. Will you see the government do anything? I doubt it until the public starts reacting. And there's going to be a lot of reaction if the Fed would get audited. Now, last year, there was pretty good movement with the audit the Fed bill. Well, here, this one was January 28th out of Yahoo News. Washington, Reuters, Republican Senator Rand Paul, a potential 2016 presidential candidate, on Wednesday reintroduced a bill that would expose the Federal Reserve's monetary policy discussions and decisions to a congressional audit. The Kentucky senators moved to reintroduce the bill, along with 30 co-sponsors, comes as Republican lawmakers and some Democrats increased their efforts to rein in the U.S. central bank and make it more transparent. The federal gained broad regulatory powers and implemented massive stimulus measures after the 2007 2009 financial crisis, expanding its balance sheet to $4.5 trillion. Republican Congressman Massey Thomas of Kentucky introduced a similar bill in the House of Representatives earlier this month. The moves are continuation of last year's congressional efforts to subject the Fed to a full audit, in addition to other measures proposed by lawmakers that would limit the central bank's authority. The Fed is subject to various audits, including reviews by the Government Accountability Office, GAO. But since 1978, its monetary policy discussions have been legally exempt from a GAO audit. Some politicians say it's time to open those deliberations to more public scrutiny. The Fed fears that a full GAO audit would reveal too much detail of monetary policy decisions made by the Federal Open Market Committee, Fed officials have said such exposure would complicate their public communications, hurt their credibility, and stroke financial market volatility. The central bank also fears that efforts to infringe on its independence would hurt U.S. monetary policy. With Democrats in control of the Senate last year, measures aimed at the Fed all died as they have in previous years. But Republicans now control both the House and the Senate, meaning Fed bills have a better chance of winning approval and going to President Barack Obama. The president, however, is unlikely to support any major changes in the U.S. central bank. Earlier this month, Republican-led efforts to permanently reserve a Fed board seat for a person with community banking experience succeeded. The provision was attached to a terrorism insurance bill that Obama signed into law. Paul is one of a large field of potential Republican candidates for the White House in 2016. I don't think Boehner would allow this to go through. Even though McConnell has basically had Rand Paul in his back pocket, I don't think he would go along with it. Lindsey Graham wouldn't go along with it. All the basic 100% sellout people that are just, they're evident. You know, they don't hide from the fact that they're sellouts, even though they put out some weird statement pretending. But, you know, you can't hide that. You're just out there flaunting it and then going, well, I'm with you guys. Come on. No. They would probably try to call themselves moderate, but what they are, part of the one-party system. There's your fringe elements in the Democrats and the Republicans. A lot in the Republicans because a lot of the Tea Party or libertarian leaning people have done a lot of work, even though they've had a lot of hijacking. If you look at the Tea Party as a whole, you probably have maybe half of those, the Ron Paul libertarians. And Rand is not Ron. And I don't trust him, but I don't trust any politician. And even Ron Paul, you know, there were flaws with him. How his campaign was allowed to run things last time he ran. So Ron, you know, he had problems, and you know, I don't think anybody listening to this is under the illusion that even if Ron or Rand were president, that we're going to have, you know, some humongous change in what's happening. But I think we would start a reversal of the course. Whether we could hold on to that reversal of course, I don't know. But we need to get back to the ability to have individual liberty. We need to move that direction instead of this collective ideology that you are property of the community or property of the state or property of anybody but yourself. It's a pretty idiotic idea that you would be property and, you know, being forced to pay taxes while the central bank gets away with what they have is pretty idiotic in itself too. Take this time out real quick to tell you about Moggy Metals. Moggy Metals, my choice for precious metals and always great prices. And they also have some base metals too that you can buy as gifts to give out to people to promote the message of freedom and liberty. And if you go to Anti-Tyranny News anti-tyranny.com/metal. By buying through that link, you're also helping support, independent media, as this broadcast is. And without the grassroots, none of this would be possible. So we urge you to be able to support your alternative media at the same time getting, whether it be metals or seeds or prepping gear, get it through one of the links. That way your favorite network or your favorite show or alternative media benefits from that. And again, that's antityrannynews.com/metal. And Amagi Metals, always great dealing with them. Great customer service, and definitely my preferred source because their prices are definitely competitive with any of the big ones out there. So check them out. antityrannynews.com/metal, Amagi Metals. And also, I would like you to check out ucy.tv. Click the UCY store tab, and that will take you to a Amazon store that's been created by ucy.tv with a large collection of prepping gear. And whether it be camping, prepping, or even something as a nuclear disaster, there are basically tools for anything you would need in a disaster. Can't always carry everything, but it's always great to try to get as much as possible and be able to prepare yourself and your family for any type of economic collapse, natural disaster, or anything else. So go check ucy.tv, click the UCY store tab, and you will also help support ucy.tv and the radio broadcast here on this network, and getting the same low price on Amazon that you would normally get. So check them out. Okay. Give me a second here. We are going to dive into some more news. Okay. Maybe. Since we were talking about Rand Paul, I'll go ahead and cover this one. Out of BenSwan.com, Texas Republican Party chairman to step down for job on Rand Paul's 2016 presidential campaign. Republican Senator Rand Paul's presumptive 2016 presidential campaign just scored a major victory in its quest to win the prized Lone Star State. Despite the fact that Texas Senator Ted Cruz and the state's former Governor Rick Perry are rumored to be considering their own bids for the White House in 2016, the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, Steve Munisteri, has announced, according to the Associated Press by way of Yahoo News, that he will be stepping down from his official role as the state party's chief in order to clear his schedule for the new job as a national senior advisor of Rand Paul's 2016 presidential campaign team. Texas GOP vote notes that Munisteri will officially be resigning as chairman on March 7th, 2015. Munisteri has been elected to serve as the Texas GOP's chairman 3 times and is known for his skills as a fundraiser. As chairman, Munisteri balanced the state's party's budget, which had been plagued by debt prior to his chairmanship, and raised an additional $22 million. a longtime friend of the Paul political family. Ministeri told the Associated Press, "I couldn't say no to him. He's the only conservative candidate that I see who is reaching out to minority voters and young voters." The Wall Street Journal quoted Ministeri as saying, "I've known the senator for 33 years, and what I'm most impressed with about him is his commitment to expand the party's reach. Our party cannot be successful. We cannot retake the White House if we do not do a better job of reaching out. Senator Paul has had that message since he's been in office." Texas presidential primary election will take place on March 1st, 2016. Meaning will be an early opportunity for a campaign to gain momentum by picking up a larger number of delegates in one state. With the former chairman of the Republican Party of Texas on Rand Paul's 2016 campaign team, he will have strong inroads into the state's hardest working activists and wealthiest donors. Rand Paul's political advisor, Doug Stafford, who is laying the groundwork for Paul's presumptive 2016 campaign, said, "I'm very pleased Steve will be joining our team. As a party chair in Texas, he raised the bar for grassroots engagement and performance. His experience in multiple national campaigns will be invaluable to Senator Paul." Stafford told the Wall Street Journal that he believes that Ministeri has chosen Senator Paul because he has the best chance to win nationally. Though Senator Paul has yet to officially announce his intentions to run for his party's nomination for president in 2016, he has kept up relentless schedule of appearances in key states like Texas, New Hampshire, Iowa, and South Carolina, has been absorbing top political operatives from those states into his campaign as senior advisors. Paul has also been wooing high-profile GOP donors in preparation for his campaign, which is expected to launch officially in the spring. Ministeri said that he will put his contact list of activists and donors to work for Paul's 2016 bid for the presidency. He told the Associated Press, "I have some definite ideas how to lay out a presidential campaign." So that is definitely going to be a little bit of a hit to people like Rick Perry and Ted Cruz when it comes to Texas, and I think the true original Tea Partyist constitutionalists, I think, would go for Rand Paul over Ted Cruz even. But the light libertarians, I think that light constitutionalists, they're definitely going to go more towards Ted Cruz. It's hard to tell what'll happen. And I definitely don't like a lot of Rand Paul's what he's talked about on foreign policy and things like that. But Hillary or Bush, he's just definitely a lesser of the evil. And I don't ever recommend voting for the lesser of one evil. But if you believe that he could win and that he could bring more libertarian ideas to the table and get anything passed, hey, go for it. And, he's not someone I talk to, so I don't know where his mind is, his heart. I'm not a close associate with him, so, a lot of this can be what many people say, that he's playing a game, but I still think that, it's a little shady to play that type of game. That's why his father was able to break through the whole Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party um, party system. He was able to get the independents. He was pulling people in from everywhere. People were willing to, take a chance at him. I think Rand Paul does that to a point, but I don't think he goes far enough. And again, he might just be playing the game. I don't know. Okay. Let's see what kind of time we have. Okay, we got enough time. I was debating on whether I wanted to play this, but one thing I wasn't going to do was pay to watch American Sniper. Someone else wanted me to watch it, so I didn't have to pay to watch this. But American Sniper, definitely seen as a propaganda film. And I hear so-called libertarians, so-called Tea Party, so-called constitutionalists. He's a hero. I can't believe people like Mike. Okay, Michael Moore probably doesn't have any, he's a corporatist, which is a crony capitalist that makes money off of trashing capitalism. Well, one, we don't have capitalism. We have phony capitalism or corporatism. And he makes money off of that. But knowing some of the lies that have come out that Chris Kyle told. And Jesse Ventura wins. I played the clip last, I think it was last broadcast or broadcast before, with Ben Swan and Jesse Ventura. It's I just can't believe people, oh my gosh, it's a movie. It's not telling the whole truth. And there's plenty of evidence out there that Chris Kyle wasn't all legit with what he told in his tell-all. And I have one from Adam Kokesh. This one's a little long, but I think it's definitely something that needs talked about more. And he titles this one American Sniper Has Warped Americans' Fragile Little Minds. And, I watched this and I agree with him on a lot of things. And when movies like this come out and I see the reaction that I do from the pro-freedom people, it kind of puts a damper on my day. It kind of makes me a little like, what the hell? And I know we still have a large amount of people that say they're pro-freedom, but pro-freedom for themselves, but not pro-freedom as a philosophical belief worldwide that every individual has the right to freedom. Seems to be lost on some people, and that's exactly why we do radio broadcasts like this. Why alternative media has grown, because more and more people are waking up to it, and more people are trying to wake others up, and we need to continue that. But I'm going to play this here from Adam Kokesh real quick. Well, I guess it's not real quick, but...
Have you seen American Sniper?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
And what did you think?
It was very moving. And at the end of the movie, no one in the theater spoke. It was very quiet. And then everyone applauded. And it was amazing to see a man that gave so much of his life for our country.
It was pretty good. It was very consistent with like the book in some parts.
Yeah, I love the story. As far as the movie goes, I thought it could have been better from an action part. I would have liked to see a little bit more of the war than more of kind of the back and forth with the family and war stuff.
So you don't like the emotional, you just want the action?
I like the action, yeah, absolutely.
You just want to see people get blown up?
No, not necessarily that, but I think that...
well, isn't that what war is?
It is. I did, yeah. I went to West Point. So, I'm 100% for the purpose of the movie.
It was a very impactful movie.
What kind of impact did it have on you?
In all honesty, I didn't know that it was a movie about the person who the story is about, Chris Kyle. And I remember when it was in the news, and only at the end really did it make sense that it was like that was his life story, or pretty much his life story. And it was very impactful. I mean, they were playing taps at the end. That's a way to just draw all kinds of emotions to the film.
I thought it was amazing.
And why is that?
Because it's like so crazy how that actually happens.
Very emotional. It was sad to me. I don't know. I had a time watching it, but I thought it was very well done and, yeah, emotional. I don't know.
Chris Kyle is definitely a hero. I mean, my parents were both served in the army in Israel. They're Israelis, and they weren't in battle. But everybody, if you can, give some input and volunteer and make a difference, and you're a hero. And that's better than sitting on your couch and having an opinion that's unsubstantiated and really just, there's no backing to.
Would you say Chris Kyle is a hero for defending the homeland then?
100%.
So you remember the scene?
Anyone who goes over there is, right? So it's by default, you deciding to go over there and fight for our country, you're absolutely defending the homeland.
Yes.
Absolutely. Definitely.
And why? What makes him a hero?
He went over and above. He did everything for his country. He believed he was protecting us.
Yeah, I agree. He had an undying love for keeping the people he cared about safe, as well as people he didn't even know. So
it was because he was defending people here at home, right?
Yes.
Do you think defending your homeland and risking your life to do that makes you a hero?
Absolutely, and it's hard for me to relate, but I actually got a draft bill sent to me from Israel because I'm an Israeli citizen, and I didn't go to the army over there because I was in college. So, in some respect, in hindsight, I think about it, wow, I should have made a difference in that way, but I'm making a difference here in America. I'm adding to the economy. I'm giving jobs to people. I'm making money for people. And, that's a different way of participating in society. A lot of people are just apathetic, and they just sit on their couch, and they think that their opinion, is going to do something, but really taking action is what does something.
I believe he was protecting our nation in a time of war.
What was the threat to our nation?
Terrorism.
From Iraq?
From Al-Qaeda, from different terrorist groups. Not in just one country, all over the place.
When did Al-Qaeda come to Iraq?
They're in Syria. They move around.
Well, this is an important question because you're saying that you support him being, going after Al-Qaeda in Iraq. So when did Al-Qaeda get to Iraq?
Never in Iraq. But I'm really glad that Saddam Hussein was taken out of power because he actually had plans to attack America, whether people realize it or not.
What were those plans?
When we went in there, we found the plans.
Like the weapons of mass destruction?
It means to be a hero is protecting others and keeping them out of harm's way.
Like protecting your homeland?
Protecting anyone who, protecting anyone that you think is, family, I guess.
Do you think that Chris Kyle is a hero?
Yes, I do.
And why do you say that?
Because he saved so many people.
Do you think it was because like he was defending his homeland?
Yes.
So if someone is defending their homeland, that makes them a hero?
Yes.
So what would you say about someone who goes out and kills a bunch of people that are heroes for defending their homeland?
I don't know.
Well, what do you think about the people that Chris Kyle was killing in the movie as a sniper? What were they doing?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you know what the movie's about, right? The war in Iraq, right? I mean,
yeah.
So what were the?
Okay, it wasn't freezing up. She was literally her mind. Once he made the association that you think he was defending his homeland. What were the people that he was shooting and killing doing? Compute failure. Her face is like look in her eyes. Retard mode.
The bad guys in the movie. What were they doing?
Defending their homeland?
So are you saying that the insurgents in Iraq are the heroes?
No.
What you said before, defending your homeland made you a hero. Now you're saying the insurgents were defending their homeland, right?
Do I think Bush was sane? I think he had some issues, but he was a Christian.
So that's some issues?
He had some issues.
Like talking to God, that God told him to go kill all the people?
He's from Texas, and if you're from Texas, you're not that bad, right? Texas. California and Texas. Where are you from?
It sounds like you're trying to avoid a rational argument by throwing in arbitrary geographic associations and saying that if you happen to be from a specific area, that's good. It's kind of a dangerous, irrational presumption.
Bush is from Texas. He's a good guy.
He's actually not from Texas. You know where he's really from?
Where?
He's from Connecticut.
He's born in Connecticut?
Yeah, and he grew up in Connecticut and was a transplant to Texas.
I did not know that. I learned a new fact today.
Isn't that crazy?
I love American Sniper.
What's the purpose of the movie?
Well, I think it's to highlight a hero's journey, and what he did over there deserves all of our respect. And I think it's good to see people in Hollywood honor a guy like that, right?
Well, it's also really important for the attempt now to get boots on the ground back in Iraq so that we can finish the job that we did there, so that the Marines that died when I was there didn't die in vain, right? I mean, you support that, right?
Oh, look, absolutely. We're doing a half-assed job right now.
Do you think a movie like this and the impact on you is going to make it more likely for you to support Obama's proposed plan to send ground troops back into Iraq to finish the job that that we did earlier in that country?
I think it would, because ISIS is really getting out of hand right now. And that movie really portrays things that need to be taken care of in a very heavy way.
If our soldiers need help, I support it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if Obama wants to go back to Iraq and, kill some more terrorists, then hoorah, let's kill all the terrorists.
Hold on a second. I just realized something, because when I was in Iraq, we were dealing with insurgents, right? And you remember the scene in the movie, the first kill that he kills a mother and her son, right?
For sure.
What are they doing in that scene?
They're trying to take a Russian grenade and throw it at a squadron of American soldiers.
And where are they?
Somewhere in Iraq, I believe.
You remember what the city looked like, right? I mean, they're in like a city square, and it's pretty bombed out, like full of rubble.
It looked like a war zone, yeah.
So it looked like their city just got really messed up by someone from outside.
It does, yeah.
And who did that?
Well, it could have been the Americans. It could have been Saddam.
No, Saddam was not bombing any cities in Iraq during the war.
It was probably the Americans who ruined it up.
Yeah. So doesn't that mean that, like, the mother and the kid, they were defending, like, their city against against a foreign invader, like and someone who was coming in, and like, doesn't that make them the heroes? Which people in that scene were defending their homeland?
Both people were, but unfortunately, they were going to kill our soldiers, so he had no choice.
Well, how is that possible that if the American troops are defending their homeland and the Iraqi troops or the Iraqi citizens that are in the insurgency are defending their homeland? I mean, you can't have both, right? There's got to be one that's right and wrong and morally justified in that sense, right?
That's why I say I don't support the war, but I support our soldiers.
I think it's just different perspectives. I mean, from their perspective, they think they're defending. I don't think that they know any better.
If someone's a hero for defending their homeland, are you trying to tell me that the insurgents in that movie, the guys that Chris Kyle was killing who are trying to defend Iraq from the invaders, you trying to tell me that the guys that killed my buddies were heroes?
No. The people that try to kill the characters in the movie, or in this case, other soldiers, are not, because they're defending something that's not being rightfully defended. Like, they want to kill other people, in this case Americans. So
if a mugger is like breaking into your house, right, and you shoot them, now would you say that they're the victim, or that they were the criminal in this case?
The criminals.
So are you trying to say that the troops that I was serving with in Iraq are criminals for invading a country?
No, they were sent there. They were sent there by our commander-in-chief.
Well, what if the guy breaking into my house was sent there by like a mafia boss to break into my house? I mean, he's just following orders, right?
Yeah, but you have to defend yourself.
Right, well, I'm going to defend myself. So you're saying that the Iraqis should be defending themselves?
No, that you're twisting it. You're twisting it all up. I'm just saying.
I'm trying to straighten it out.
Well, there's no straightening it out. It's too confusing. Our soldiers are over there, and I support our soldiers. I support what you did, and I support our fellow soldiers. And whether or not we're supposed to be there or who's defending who, it's so confused now, to me, in my mind.
So you don't support what the troops are doing, but you support them doing it?
Yes. I support our soldiers 100%.
they're extremists, so I guess they're protecting what they believe in, but in not a very good way, because they're harming others and doing what they do. So, and probably taking over a government too, so as well.
Well, wasn't that what Chris Kyle was doing?
Yeah.
Who in that scene? Well, he is, but anyone else who's in that convoy, anyone who's there is defending the homeland.
But they're in Iraq.
Yeah.
That's not their homeland.
Yeah, thank God they're not here, right?
Who's they? You mean the terrorists?
Yeah.
Like from 9/11?
No, but any of these guys. I mean, the Al-Qaeda, that's just one element of these.
Before the invasion of Iraq, how many terrorists were there in Iraq?
I don't know the answer to that.
How many terrorists from the 9/11 hijackings were from Iraq?
I don't know. I think most of them from Saudi Arabia, actually.
The answer is zero.
Zero, yeah.
Do you think that the mother and the kid were actually there defending their homeland when they're in a city that's been bombed out by a foreign invader and they're trying to repel them? I mean, if you were in their situation and your country had been attacked and was being occupied and martial law was being imposed by a country that you never threatened, wouldn't you stand up here and defend your homeland?
I would, but I don't know what parallel you're trying to make.
So you don't think the people that live in Iraq have a right to defend their homeland?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
The problem is the threat of terrorism, and it's growing everywhere. I think it's worse than it was before, and I think all the progress we made and all the sacrifice that was made over there is probably, sadly, lost.
If you think that the war is bad, why do you think that the war is supporting this country?
That's where it's confusing. Because we were attacked. Don't forget, we were attacked on 9/11. And then...
What was the connection with that to Iraq?
That's what's confusing.
You're confused about that?
I am.
Are you confused about that?
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Okay, because it's pretty clear, weapons of mass destruction was the justification for Iraq. It had nothing to do with 9/11, and it turned out that was a lie.
It was a lie.
So...
But we're still over there, and our soldiers are still there, so...
So don't you think, having a critical examination of this really important life and death issue would be worthwhile? That we shouldn't just say, hey, we support the troops, but we don't have any understanding of what's going on? No offense.
I don't have all the details and that to make that decision. And unfortunately, I don't trust our president. Sorry.
But you want people and you support them following his orders.
I support our soldiers because that's what we have to do.
At the end of the day, this economy is built on war. You know, religion is built on war. Like,
there were actually no terrorists, unless you count Saddam, in Iraq, you know, as the government there. But it was for weapons of mass destruction. Remember when we found the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq?
I recall, I don't remember the exact moment, but sure.
They were never found.
Okay, well, we found something.
What was it that he was fighting for us in the war in Iraq in terms of the problem of terrorism as you describe it?
What, he was over there, I don't know if he was there, I can't remember what years he was there, but he was there to push back Al-Qaeda, the spread of global terrorism.
Well, it wasn't Al-Qaeda, it was the insurgency. So if everyone has a right to defend themselves, and the people in Iraq have a right to defend themselves against the American invaders coming in, doesn't that make Chris Kyle the bad guy? Doesn't that make him one of the people that's like killing them for defending their homeland?
But he was taking orders, so and that's what always been in the military, take orders from your superiors.
Oh, okay. Well, hold on. Just following orders. Where have I heard that before? That sounds like a really familiar phrase.
Well, following orders is what, to give an example, when in World War II, when the Nazis were killing Jews, they were put in a trial, and that's what a lot of people said. And they ended up executing their superiors and that's what was called the Nuremberg trials. So the superiors were executed because they were the one giving the other people the order.
Well, they also said they were just following orders from Hitler, right? So do you think if that's a good excuse, like if someone's just following orders, then it's okay to do horrible, immoral things?
If they're following orders from their highly superiors, then I guess yes, because they don't really have a choice to do it.
You have to?
If you were over there, I supported you. I would support you. If you went tomorrow, I support all of our soldiers.
That sounds like a really dangerous, unthinking position. Like hey, let's say I'm about to stab you in the face, right? And we're wrestling on the ground, and you've got my arm, and you've got me stuck here, right? And as you've got me stuck, you reach around your back pocket. You're about to stab me and protect yourself and keep yourself from getting hurt. And then someone comes in and takes that knife out of your hand, and I stab you and kill you. That person, by your definition, they were doing the right thing because they were protecting me, right?
But they pulled the knife out of your hands?
No, out of your hands, so you couldn't defend yourself. So like you're saying Chris Kyle was defending other soldiers in Iraq, right?
Yeah, he was.
But if they were doing something immoral, like killing people who are just defending their homeland and invading another country, then he's helping someone do something immoral by defending them, right?
Doing something immoral for them to defend themselves. In some ways, I guess that he was doing something moral for his troops, but I guess he was doing something immoral in the eyes of the people of Iraq or whichever country they were in.
I don't understand. What are you really driving at here with the question?
Well, if the people in Iraq who were shooting at me were defending their homeland, doesn't that make me the aggressor and the villain and them the heroes and Chris Kyle the bad guy because he was killing people that were heroically defending their homeland against a foreign invader?
That's not how I look at it.
Why not?
Because I'm an American. And I support what our American troops do for us.
So that's an identity response. That's not really like a rational reason. You understand the difference, right?
No, I do understand, but I think that if supporting the mission of what our country needs to solve to fight terrorism, and if that's the battleground, and that's where it happens to be, and I'm picking our side.
Okay, well, Iraq had nothing to do with terrorism and the justification for the invasion. You know this, right? It was weapons of mass destruction that turned out to be a lie. So you're conflating these issues, and I would hope that if you really care about this country for an issue as important as life or death for a soldier like I was in the Marines, that you would take the time to at least like get your facts straight on that. Let's say you're an Iraqi and I'm a Marine in Iraq, like I was, right? And you know, I'm gonna hurt you. I'm gonna violate you. I'm gonna I might tie you up. I might just occupy your house, like Chris Kyle did in the movie, right? You know, he occupied houses where he kept the families captive so that he could use their houses as sniper positions. So would it make you feel any better if I told you, hey, man, it's okay. I'm just following orders? We should be looking at what the big threat is if we really care about protecting our fellow Americans. And it's clear that our own government is a bigger threat. And it's pretty cowardly, if you know this, to say, hey, I'm going to go after the little threat in Iraq that's really not even a terrorist threat, as you know, but because of propaganda that you've obviously been subjected to, you have some misunderstanding of this, right? So a real hero would be someone who actually goes after the big threat and is really honestly protecting people. And if someone knew this, and we all really kind of know this.
So let me ask you this, I got to go, because we're late for our movie. So you don't think Chris Kyle's a hero? That's your point? That's why you're doing this?
I don't think it really matters whether you address someone as a hero or not, but I think holding...
You've been asking me, so I want to know what you...
No, well, I'm answering. I mean, I think that the concept of holding someone up as a hero is a very dangerous concept. And it's...
Fair enough. But just answer. Do you think he's a hero?
No. I think he's done good things and he's done bad things, but I think in terms of the main point of his life, which was to be America's deadliest sniper, he was part of a criminal enterprise that he may have been duped into being a part of, but in a sense, he still bears responsibility for that.
Yeah, fair enough. I respect your opinion. You fought for us, so I got to give you your opinion.
Well, the thing is, I didn't. I was fighting for bankers, politicians, and war profiteers, and now you know that.
Yeah, understood. Nice to meet you.
All right, thanks for your time. Can I give you a sticker? I really appreciate it. You said that just following orders is an adequate excuse to do immoral things, but don't you think that we have a responsibility? Like, I chose to join the Marines. Every order that I get, I choose to follow, right? In fact, we have a responsibility, and they tell us when we join the Marines that you are supposed to disobey illegal orders or orders, you know, and personally, I would say orders that disagree with your conscience. If you're given an order that says, you know, is doing something that you know is morally wrong, and you absolutely know for certain, you have a moral duty to disobey those orders. And Chris Kyle had a choice every single time he pulled the trigger on someone, when instead he could have said, you know what, this war is wrong. I'm going to go home and I'm going to make sure that everybody knows what the reality is.
Well, during the film, it was during a 9/11 attack, and that's when he joined in the case of the film. Everyone at that time.
He joined before it, actually. He joined before 9/11.
Oh, okay. So I guess he...
But what does 9/11 have to do with Iraq?
Isn't that why we went to Iraq in the first place?
No, it was because Bush lied about intelligence and said that there were weapons of mass destruction there. Don't you think we should hold people to a higher moral standard and critically examine whether what they're doing is moral or not?
Absolutely.
Before we support them?
Why don't you tell President Obama that?
I have.
He's an idiot. All right, I have to go, but thank you for your service.
Well, what do you mean by that?
He's an idiot.
No, what do you mean by thank you for your service?
Thank you for what you did when you were over in Fallujah as a soldier.
But you said the war was a bad idea. Why would you thank me for doing something that was a bad idea?
Over there to do what you had to do, and you put your life on the line.
But I didn't think. Like, we're 8 times more likely now to be killed by a cop than by a terrorist. Personally, if there's a big threat, right? There's a big threat that is the American police state and the American government, and there's a little threat that is terrorism. And I say, I'm going to be really brave. I'm going to go after the little threat, and I'm going to do what the big threat tells me to do. The big threat is government here, right? Yeah. That's pretty cowardly, isn't it? I mean, shouldn't I be saying...
Coward?
I was, yeah, and I think...
You think you were a coward being a soldier over there carrying a rifle and shooting at people? That makes you a coward?
Because if the troops defended freedom, they'd be attacking the government. And that's what I do now, is I challenge people to think critically and examine these contradictions and see where we can call ourselves to a higher moral standard as a society. I've learned from my mistakes, and I'm trying to bring that to people. And I hope you're not avoiding a rational conclusion of this conversation, because I'm challenging you to think about this in a different way, right?
I appreciate that.
If your country was invaded by foreign occupiers and you had those skills, you had sniper skills, I mean, wouldn't you go try to shoot those people to protect your homeland?
If I had sniper skills and people trying to kill my people, yeah.
Okay, well, I got a question for you then. What's a bigger risk to your life, the police or the terrorists?
Okay, do you know where we are right now? We're in Santa Monica.
Okay.
The only risk I got is if I eat bad sushi or not. Like, let's be honest. Like, we are grateful that we have troops that go overseas and do the dirty shit that we don't want to do, the dirty battles that we don't want to do. And as a tax-paying citizen, I'm grateful for that. And people who complain here on their couch, it's like, go over there and see that.
Hold on. You're 8 times more likely to be killed by a cop than by a terrorist, and you're someone who you're more likely to be killed by a cop than a terrorist, and you're someone who sat on his couch when you had the opportunity to go to the military.
Oh, yeah.
And you're giving me opinions when I was there, and I'm telling you that the war is a crime, and that someone who goes and shoots people who are trying to defend their homeland is not a hero. And that for you to sit here and say, we need to support the troops, I need to keep paying taxes, this is the right thing to do, is really absurd when you know that there's a greater threat here at home. You even know this. So you see how maybe this movie was trying to give you like a bit of a warped perspective with like preventing you from just stepping back a little bit and seeing the bigger picture here, that the people that Chris Kyle was killing in American Sniper were the real heroes, that they were defending their homeland against an American invading force?
Yeah.
So,
okay, I'm going to stop it there. It goes on. It's pretty hilarious, and he schools them all the way to the end. But it does show the contradiction between, you know, what we say and do than what we would say and do if we were in another person's position. And you know, it goes back to, you know, the Revolution Pack's video that they put out. I think it was Revolution Pack. You know, what if China, you know, invaded the U.S. and did this, and, you know, what would you do in these situations? And everything that you would do is what people in other countries that have a foreign military force marching around are doing. Another reason why they definitely like to go after gun rights. Give me a second here. Trying to look up something. I'm not finding it. Let's see if I can find it. If I don't find it here. I think this one might be it. If it's going to pop up. I have a problem with my browser. I'm trying to update the browser at the same time. That might help. Okay, I found it. It was Gun Owners of America, and this was from today. Came from WorldNet Daily originally. Second Amendment threatening Obama's trade plans. The United Nations giving President Obama fast-track authority to conclude an international trade agreement is like playing Russian roulette with 6 bullets in the chamber, says one of America's leading gun rights organizations. Gun Owners of America is blasting a congressional proposal that empowers Obama to unilaterally negotiate international agreements as a bait and switch scheme that could seriously impact the Second Amendment. House and Senate committees are currently preparing to hand Obama's so-called fast-track trade promotion authority. It would enable the president to unilaterally negotiate the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade and global governance agreement with the U.S. and 11 other nations bordering the Pacific Ocean. Under fast-track rules, Congress would not be able to amend or even vet the completed agreement. It could only approve everything that Obama has included, including anything tucked away in the 99th page that no one really wants to talk about or kill it. Gun Owners of America warns fast-track delegates to Barack Obama the legislative authority to do anything he wants, absolutely anything, so long as he includes it in the trade agreement. Second Amendment defenders worry, for example, anti-gun measures such as gun and ammunition import bans could be relegated to the bowels of the so-called trade agreement. They say Congress would be unable to stop it when every establishment interest in Washington starts pushing Congress to immediately approve the up or down deal. They point to the experience with the recently approved $1 trillion spending bill, which included the largest funding increase in history for the federal gun database, empowered states to impose gun bans based on doctors' orders, and increase the budget for the ATF. Fast track is the same dynamic as the Cromnibus. And if we hadn't just gone through that, we wouldn't see what will happen if they give him fast track. Michael Hammond, Legislative Counsel for Gun Owners of America, told WND. Republicans whine about Obama usurping legislative authority, so why in heaven's name are they thinking of giving him unlimited legislative authority to do anything he can put into a trade agreement? Hammond asked supporters of Fast Track, including Representative Paul Ryan, Republican of Wisconsin, Senator Orrin Hatch, Republican of Utah, say it allows Congress to set goals for an agreement the Obama administration will negotiate. But Hammond points out the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement has already largely been negotiated and is being kept secret only for the sole purpose of getting us to give it a rubber stamp. What kind of idiot would bite on that deal? The Obama administration has been negotiating the Trans-Pacific Partnership without congressional input for the past 6 years and acknowledges the deal is near completion. I don't think it's wise to allow Obama to promulgate any law that he wants as long as he succeeds in sticking it in the agreement and then gets Congress set on an up or down vote without any possibility for amendment, Hammond said. It's playing Russian roulette with a gun with 6 bullets in the chamber, he said. Gun Owners of America is urging everyone to contact the senators, representatives, and ask them to oppose giving fast-track authority to Barack Obama. WND has reported extensively on the TPP, including when Obama traveled to Asia to promote it last year. TPP has been described as as the largest ever economic treaty encompassing 12 participating nations representing more than 40% of the world's gross domestic product. It's a frontrunner to the equally under the radar Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, or TIPP, between the U.S. and the European Union. WND reported that the White House, without much fanfare, wrapped Mexico and Canada into the TPP negotiations as a continuation of an effort regarded by critics as a movement towards a European Union-style integration of North America. So now you see what's coming down the pipeline. That's exactly what Obama wants to get through. He's did the small arms treaty crap, and all he wants is for them to give him fast track where, well, that can just be basically written into there that they will have to abide by that. Excuse me. Okay. I got a couple I'll talk about real quick. And this has to do with our youth. If you don't know these two, one band and another one artist, a rap artist. This from countercurrentnews.com. Arizona schools tried to ban Rage Against the Machine and KRS-One. This is what happened next. Arizona school officials made it illegal to play Rage Against the Machine or even read an essay from hip-hop legend KRS-One. But that hasn't stopped the icon and self-described teacher from dropping some knowledge on the youth of Arizona. KRS-One showed up at Tucson Cholla Magnet High School on Wednesday and held a marathon 3-hour lecture where he discussed the origins of the hip-hop music genre as well as the district's controversy regarding ethnic students, which led to them banning his music and writing it, as well as Rage Against the Machine, who KRS has teamed up with in the past. Watch the video KRS-One and Rage frontman Zach De La Rocha in CIA Criminals in Action, where the pair call out U.S. government for targeting Native Americans, African American communities, and even blaming so-called minority communities for the government's own drug running. All this stems from an incident earlier this month when the outgoing head of Arizona's education department, John Huppenthal, denounced the culturally relevant curriculum which Tucson schools offered. He claimed that the program violated a 2010 law which essentially banned ethnic studies. To top off the bizarreness of the claim, he issued a letter of non-compliance that cited a Rage Against the Machine song and KRS-One essay called An Introduction to Hip-Hop. These, Huppenthal said, were examples of illegal promotion of ethnic solidarity and the overthrow of the U.S. government. You should be proud of your school for doing this, KRS-One said, encouraging the school to continue to defy Department of Education. The 50-year-old musician also encouraged students, saying, when you feel great, you see others as great, and you add value. Lift them up and show other cultures how great your culture is. After the lecture, KRS gave an impromptu hip-hop show. What do you think about this law and KRS-One's defiant response to it? I'll tell you what I think. I think that there is a need for the ethnic studies, but I think that there also should be a very hard study on current racial and the understanding that a lot of the racist talk in media and all that is being done by the same people that were the ones that were government and media putting the drugs into the minority communities and, you know, demonizing the minorities. And even when, you know, you could see drug use the same among whites and blacks, that the blacks were the ones being targeted. That's a fact in American history, and you know, whether it be slavery or just, you know, racial, and it's a fact. But the current is that we have to get past that, and if we keep bringing race into everything that ever happens, then we're not going to get past that. And to help do that, you have to call out the people that are either the ones that are doing the drug running, which many people will talk about the CIA, whether it be, you know, the racial tensions, which you can see, you know, leaders of the Ferguson riots that turned violent, and you know, a lot of them had to do with socialist parties, communist parties that were agitators showing up there from these groups. And the heads of a lot of these groups met with Holder and met with Obama, little closed door meetings, and well, you know, if they can't get you to hurt each other just by making cultural differences, then they'll you know, race bait you, and that's exactly what they want people to do. And I think they succeeded in a little bit on the Michael Brown for some of the easily manipulated people out there, but I think the more intelligent people seeing the race baiting, seeing that, you know, okay, there's an issue here that should be talked about, and that's militarization of the police forces, but this is being turned into something completely different. And that's kind of when I disengaged in a lot of it. It was apparent. And then I read that article with the linking of Soros to a lot of financing of these groups through his nonprofits. So, you know, there's evidence out there that a lot of this was going on. And I think that we'll get past this. But we have to take that step. We're running out of time. I'm going to play a minute and 24-second clip right here. Since we're on the subject of our youth, Common Core. 5 reasons to oppose Common Core. This is from Reason. Or actually, this was from Freedom Works. I'm going to have to read them out to you. So I'm just going to mute this. 1, Common Core is top-down control. The federal government's one-size-fits-all approach is unconstitutional and ineffective. Number 2, Common Core invades students' privacy. Common Core has brought enhanced collection and sharing of students' data, fingerprints, academic performance, retina scans. 3, Common Core is confusing. Textbooks and worksheets to conform Common Core standards have been marked confusing, frustrating, at times unsolvable problems. Number 4, Common Core was developed by bureaucrats, not teachers. CC standards were written by people with little experience in education settings. Secretary of Education on something. Common Core makes the U.S. more like China. Number 5, Common Core seeks to emulate the Chinese statistic book system. The approach sacrifices individuality, creativity. So there you go. FreedomWorks has got other little clips up there. They have some stuff from Judge Andrew Napolitano and others. So check them out on YouTube, FreedomWorks. They do pretty good work out there, and I'm definitely not dogging on anybody that's making change for positive. But my end goal for liberty might be different, but I don't also have a false reality of reaching that in my lifetime, but I definitely will continue to talk about liberty and freedom and what it really means and try to help bring a fundamental change to the way we look at things going on. Things like the war, things like our economy. When we don't have a monetary policy that will ever benefit you or me or the country, if you look at it that way. We have to, fundamentally change people's minds and make people have actual critical thought on things instead of just blindly following something. Liberty and freedom are not without their own flaws. When you have freedom, you're still going to have people that will want to do wrong. What you don't have is an organization or a group or some artificial minority organization. Really, if you look at what government is, very few people against the populace. You don't have this artificial authority over the individual, and government is no different really than the mob, other than there's another small group out there that elect them, that supposedly give them authority over you and me. I thought there was something about, you can't give someone rights that you yourself don't have. And that's basically what that is. Gun Owners of America, find that article, share it. It's titled Second Amendment Threatened in Obama's Trade Plans. Before we end the broadcast, I do want to tell you about My Patriot Supply. This is the company that I go through for my heirloom seeds, non-GMO, great seed source, and luckily they're also here in Indiana, which that's where I'm located too. They hire all, American people, support the economy, USA. It's where you live, support local, and heirloom seeds are a must-have, non-genetically modified. We know that our crops and everything's being manipulated and changed, and there could be a time that if we as a people don't save the heirloom, crops, we might not see them much longer. And they have survival seed vaults that store for a long period of time, and great price, $29.95, I believe. If you go to antityrannynews.com/mypatriot, that will help support this broadcast and everything we're trying to accomplish at antityrannynews.com. Also, go to ucy.tv and click the UCY store tab, and that will help support the network. You'll be shopping through Amazon, getting the same great prices. At the same time, help support UCY Radio. Stay tuned here on UCY. Other great broadcasts coming up next. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great week, and I'll see you next week.